Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1604B, and today's date is June 29th, 2018, and the title of the episode is, It Must Happen, People Will Reject, Will Be Lost, Their World Will Implode. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, we know during the many years before Trump, Obama, Clinton, Bush, going all the way back with the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, they've been spying on the American people. And it just got worse over time, where they were able to embed different chips into phones, into computers. They can listen in on conversations. They can, with the NSA, with their supercomputer center, they can record all different phone calls, text messages, and whatnot. And there's a lot of information in there, probably even Hillary Clinton's emails and many other things. What's very interesting is that the National Security Agency is going to be scrubbing several years' worth of call records swept up in foreign intelligence surveillance wiretaps that it was never authorized to collect, claiming there was a technical irregularity causing an oversight. Now, the agency issued a statement Thursday notifying the public that it began to delete all so-called call detail records, CDRs, collected since 2015. Now, what I'm wondering is what has been captured since 2015 in the NSA databases. I mean, were there calls with Obama, Hillary, and the rest? Do they have emails also in this that they're getting rid of, even though they just tell us that it's call detail records? Are there text messages that are also included with this? We don't know. They're just telling us that they're deleting this information. Now, are they trying to mop up everything right now so nobody can get a hold of this? Now, I don't think this is going to work if this is the case, because I do believe that Q and Trump and the Patriots already have this information someplace else. And also, once you delete something, it's not really deleted. You can always use different techniques, forensic techniques, to get the information back. And you would have to really, wipe out everything with maybe, bit bleach or something like that to really destroy everything. But we know the Patriots, Trump, they've been preparing for this, and they know that everything had to be taken offline. And I think this is why Q continually said, make sure that you have all of this stuff offline. Make sure that everything is offline to keep a record of all of this. And I think this is the attempt of the deep state to try to cover up so nobody can gain access to any of this information. And of course, if there's a request made to the NSA, they'll look it up in their records and they'll just, type in whatever, and they'll say, yeah, we don't have a record of that. And I think this is how they're going to get around it. Now, out in Italy, we see that Italy is going up against France. France is saying that they will not open a controlled migration center. They're saying those countries that are closest to those migrants, they're the ones that should open a migration center, not France. And we see right now there's a huge battle going on between the different countries in regards to immigration, in regards to the refugees. And many of the European countries do not agree with France, with Germany. And we see already that, France is telling everyone else what to do, but they're not going to open up a controlled migration center in their country because they're saying they're not the point of entry. Well, you could make them the point of entry. They just have to sail up to that country, and then all of a sudden they're the point of entry. But of course, they don't want that in their country, but they want everyone else to do it. We see out in Syria right now, there is an agreed ceasefire with Damascus and the Free Syrian Army right now, which would lead to reconciliation between the opposition and government forces. Now, this is very interesting that they've been working on this ceasefire deal for quite a while right now, and Trump is going to meet with Putin, and they're going to be talking about Syria. Now, what's even more interesting about that is that CNN, it looks like they're already getting prepared for troops being removed from Syria. I think they already know that this is going to happen, and they're just trying to front run the story when it comes out, because sources told the CNN broadcaster that Trump believed he could reach an agreement with Putin to create an exclusion zone in Syria's southwest that would allow U.S. troops to get out ASAP. And it seems that the corporate media is trying to get ahead of this story, like they did with North Korea and many others. And of course, how will you know if this is really happening? You will hear the corporate media, once Trump is meeting with Putin, talk about terrorists, talk about, look, maybe a chemical attack in this area to try to keep the U.S. in Syria. I think they're going to do whatever they possibly can to try to keep the troops there, just like they did with North Korea. When peace was going down with North Korea and the summit was approaching, the corporate media was out there trying all different ways to try to stop the summit from happening. And I think the same thing is going to happen in Syria. And I think when you hear the corporate media out there talking all this stuff like, oh, there's another chemical attack, oh, Assad is doing something else, I think this is how you will know that the troops are preparing and getting ready to be moved out of Syria. And I think this is where this is headed. Now, we know there's going to be a lot of news coming out of the IG report and almost everything else. And the IG report, and we're going to go over that with Q and a lot of his posts. But before we get to that, going back many, many posts, Q did say that they might take down the internet. They might have a blackout for a couple of days. And, many people were speculating, is they're going to use the internet kill switch? What are they going to do here? What's very interesting is that Comcast, the second largest multi-channel video service in the U.S., they have about, 22.5 million subscribers. They were experiencing a nationwide service interruption. Now, this is just one company. And basically, when you look on the Down Detector website, you can see like a lot of the Northeast was down, Chicago, California, down in Florida, a little bit in Texas, and around the country. And the very, very populated areas, those were the places where Comcast was completely down. And I'm thinking to myself, if they were going to black out these news stories and not have people communicate during this period, how would you do it? Well, you could have the ISP providers all of a sudden have a nationwide blackout. You don't have to bring down the internet with a kill switch. You just make it difficult for people to get online and to see other things except for the corporate media that is on TV. So this way, they can front run anything that's coming out, try to convince people what is happening, and then maybe a couple days later, have the internet come back up online. And maybe they'll have another story in there through their news cycle where nobody else will be even talking about that. And then, of course, all of a sudden, the online media comes back online and people start to talk about it. But it might be a couple of days. It might be a couple of weeks. And for them, oh, it's too late already. It's already passed. And this might be a method that they might use to have a blackout. Now, let's get into some of Q's posts, and we're going to go to post 1624. And Anon put up, "Sick people, Q. I wish we can get these bastards with you. Go get them." And Q responded, "We are." Pain with a lot of exclamation points. Q. Post 1625, June 28th, Q put up a link to an article on Breitbart about Facebook investors considering a coup of CEO Mark Zuckerberg. And remember, Q a while back told us that to get rid of Facebook, Google, and things like this, you need class action suit or push some type of coup to have a reorganization of these companies, maybe to break them up or something like that. And I think what Q is trying to say is that it's beginning. Post 1626, June 28th, we see that an Annan put up a WikiLeaks tweet where it says Democratic senators who demanded today that Julian Assange's asylum be revoked in violation of international law. Remember them. So all these names are here. Robert Menendez, Richard Durbin. Durbin, remember, he's the one that told everyone that Trump has 2 phones, which was classified. Richard Blumenthal, Edward Markey, Michael Bennett, Christopher Coons, Joe Manchin, Jeanne Shaheen, Dianne Feinstein, Mark Warner. And Q came on and he said, server or Julian Assange equals truth exposed. And he's talking about the truth exposed for all those individuals, Susan Rice, James Clapper, Obama, Clinton. And I do believe with Q saying server or Julian Assange, I think that the source is Julian Assange. I think they have Julian Assange, and I think they were preparing to have Q and Julian Assange come onto the boards, and it just didn't happen for some reason. But I think they do have them, and they have everything they need. He says, Q says, D's are in crisis mode. The A1 brothers, Q is saying, is bigger than you can imagine. And this is why they're keeping the A1s around, and they're keeping them safe. And I think they're protecting them right now because they have a lot of information. They were dealing in stealing secrets and other things. And we can see right now, Q is actually confirming that they have done a lot more than people think. Q went on to say, Putin, Uranium One, will come out post-summit. So Trump is meeting with Putin, and this information is going to come out after the summit. I think there's going to be a lot of things coming out after this summit once Putin meets with Trump. And I think they're going to agree that it is time. And Q went on to say they will try to apply artificial mainstream media heat to cancel this. Of course, they don't want these 2 individuals to meet and talk about what's happening in Syria, what's happening with the Uranium One, what's happening with the Russian aggression, with everything else. They don't want any of this because Putin most likely is going to tell Trump quite a bit, and Trump is going to tell Putin quite a bit. He went on, these people are corrupt beyond belief. America for sale, sold out, Q. Then we move on to post 1627, and someone put up, Reuters reporter blames Trump for what happened on Maryland newspaper office, so despite no evidence linking him to the event. And Q came back and said low IQ Maxine should be blamed. They know exactly what they're doing. Post 1628, June 28th. Going back to post 1195, an Anon put up and repeated that post and said, when will we find out about Seth Rich and Las Vegas? And a Q again wrote, SR connected to DNC, MS-13, JA, which is Julian Assange. Why did the Ds push legal rep on family? June ETA. And then below that, this Anon linked certain dates and information together. And the article reads, How Comey Intervened to Kill WikiLeaks Immunity Deal. And highlighted the following. The date, June 25th, 2018. And in the post, it says June ETA. Highlighted in this article is the effort resulted in the drafting of a limited immunity deal that might have temporarily freed the WikiLeaks founder from a London embassy where he has been exiled for years, according to interviews and a trove of internal Department of Justice documents turned over to Senate investigators. But in an unexpected intervention by Comey, relayed through Warner, soured the negotiations, multiple sources say. And Q went on to say, coincidence? Julian Assange in the news a lot lately. Out of nowhere. Crisis mode. I think they're very nervous right now because Julian Assange is no longer in asylum where he's off in a different country. I think he's with the Patriots. I think they have them. I think he's together with the president. And they're very nervous about this because Julian Assange has this information. Post 1629. Q. Law enforcement should interview the therapist. Each shooter has one coincidentally. Targets. Relocation within 30 days of each shooting. New name. FBI doesn't know this. Spooks are hard to find. Dream to reality. Q. And what he's talking about is all these different events that we had around the country. And if you look, each one of these individuals had a therapist. And I believe the therapist is then used to basically use some type of mind control and to have these people do these things that they want them to do. Remember, they told us that they can control the innocents. There's many different ways of controlling innocents. And I think this is one of the ways they do it. Post 1630. Q repeats what we just talked about and then shows a symbol. The symbol is of the Freemasons. And Q is asking, why are Freemasons on the scene of most shooting locations, openly giving interviews or in background shots? Symbolism will be their downfall. And in post 1631, Q puts up, or an Anon put up, an individual that is being interviewed, and around his neck he has the symbol of a Freemason. Another individual who's giving an interview on Fox has a hat on with the symbol of a Freemason. And Q went on to say, everywhere, Q. Post 1632, June 28th. Most all-powerful organizations have sinister components. With power comes corruption. Like alphabet agencies, not all are bad apples. Should the bad spoil the bunch? No, within these agencies, there are good people. And then at the top, who are controlling all of this, they're the bad apples. And of course, as they gain more and more power, they think they're gods. They think they can't be touched. And they go around and they think they're above the laws. I mean, if you really listen to all these individuals, they really do think they are above the law. Now, post 1633, an Anon put up Gerard W. Ramos, showing that, yes, he had a therapist. This is post 1633, June 28th, and put therapist confirmed. Q went, coincidence? Everything stated has a meaning. Fine paper articles, Freemasons, controlled. Q. And I think what he's saying here is that these individuals are controlled. There's a certain group. There's a therapist for each one of these individuals. And they control them and groom them over time, using most likely drugs and other methods to do this. Q points us to post 1634, June 28th, gives us a link and says, look at the bottom graphic. And it shows a crest and it says Ramos under it. Post 1635, June 28th, Q puts up something from an Anon where there's a symbol and it says the brand of sacrifice. So Q is saying that these brands, these symbols have meaning, and it makes individuals feel like they're part of a group, that they're part of something much, much larger. And under the symbol, it says, you have now been marked with the brand of sacrifice. The lives of those who bear the brand, from the last drop of blood to the last moment of your agonizing death, will feed life to the new child of darkness. Post 1636, June 28th, an Anon put, were the shooters all branded with this mark? I don't think they had the brand on them. I think they associate with the brand. And Q came out to say, the key is the therapist. That's where we should be looking at the therapist. They take these people with weak minds, and that's what Q says, weak minds, use of symbolism to push strength and belonging to something powerful. They are controlled. Duty. Find the link, common denominator. Error made. Name can be found due to filing. Fake. Background. Office. Other patients. relocation imminent, conspiracy risk, and for now, Haspel must find and term class program. She knows. Q. So from all of this, it looks like maybe the office is fake. The backgrounds that they create, they're fake. They have other patients where they're grooming other patients, or maybe they don't have any other patients at all. They always relocate, and they keep the conspiracy risk very, very low by continually moving around and moving their location so no one really knows what's going on. And if you notice, a lot of the stuff is scrubbed afterwards, so you can't see anything, and a lot of the information that is put up most of the time has been put up in the last couple of days, and we've been talking about this for a very long time, about all of this and how they create all of this, and we can see that everything that we've been talking about is now coming true. Post 1637, June 28th, and Anon put up, Q, any comments on North Korea facilities and General Kelly? Thanks. Q came back and said North Korea equals fake news. The UK originated the fake news about North Korea where they're not denuclearizing their nuclear weapons. And Q is saying North Korea already began denuclearization process under guidance from the US. It's rapid. Why are people always being moved around? Think strategy, the plan, military operation. So it looks like the corporate media is still pushing fake news out there, trying to convince the people that things are not happening the way they're supposed to be happening. And once again, we see during the whole North Korean crisis, they were doing this up to the very end of the summit, where they were even out there saying that the summit wasn't even going to be going forward, and which turned out to be fake, phony, and false. Because we've said this before, the deal was already made way before the summit. The summit was the show for the world. Everything else was said and done way before this. 1638, June 28th, Anon put up, so is Q telling us Haspel knows of the program, but doesn't know where it is located at? She needs to locate it and terminate it. Time to dig for Ramos therapists. So the Anon came back with one of the Q posts, 104, Project Deep Dream, and Q was saying Deep Dream equals Twitter, the CIA's target assassination beta program known as Iron Hand, and Q came back and said Think Born, Covert Operations Classified, Career Installed, Think Cell, Pass Drops Go Missing. And I think all these things are done in cells so nobody else outside knows what's going on, just like Born. That was the movie he's referring to, or he, she, group of people, Q, that they're referring to is Born. It was a single cell, not knowing anything else that was going on, only what that mission was for that individual, and even Born didn't know who he was. Post 1639, security test Q, and it looks like Q is saying that the site is under attack, info shared highly sensitive, and said error 502 host error DDoS, and saying that the site is under attack now. 1641, June 28th, coordinated effort to ramp pro-violent attacks, 4chan, 8chan, threads, mods controlled, stage to frame pro-POTUS supporters, push violence, trap. Share Blue, coordinated RL attacks link. Cause and effect, mainstream media outcry to force action. It has already begun, small to large. Q put up a link of the Huffington Post. Dark parts of the internet celebrate the event at Capital Gazette. Q wrote anticipated goal, ready David. Now, we can see right here that they're planning on ramping up pro-violent attacks, riots, things like that. And Q says, ready David? Q. And many of the Anons think that David refers to David Brock. And David Brock is the owner or the creator of Share Blue, which Q does mention Share Blue. And if we go to the freebeacon. there's a story about David Brock and the Share Blue Nucleus multi-platform anti-Trump media entity. And this Share Blue media platform is going to be used as a digital attacker to delegitimize Trump's presidency by emboldening opposition. David Brock, the Democratic operative who founded the left-wing Media Matters for America, plans to use a news entity he recently purchased as the nucleus of his efforts to delegitimize President Trump, according to certain documentation that the Free Beacon received. Brock spent this past weekend gathered more than 100 deep-pocketed Democrat donors at the posh Turnberry Isle Resort in Aventura, Florida. And basically, this is what Q is referring to, where they're planning on having pro-violent attacks and getting everyone moving in that direction. 1642, June 28th, Q repost 1484. Is Ryan still there because he's going to support POTUS? Under that, who brings the votes? House floor. Who decides? Why is this important? What is coming? Full weight of the House. Some must remain clean, distant from what is about to happen. Then under that, Q wrote, what vote occurred today? Well, it looks like the House wants to have the IG or the documentation from the Department of Justice delivered to the House. Full weight of the House. Why is this relevant? Provide supportable grounds for deadline. I think this is being pushed to get the IG report out there. And actually, Q kind of confirms that later on in post 1643, where Q says, we are waiting for a reporter to ask the ultimate question. What are they waiting for? They can end this at any time simply by asking POTUS, can you declassify the IG report? Q says we have to force this one. Post 1644, June 28th. Q says it must happen. Conspiracy no more. Think of every post made. It would force us to prove everything stated to avoid looking crazy, correct? What do they fear the most? The public awakening. If they ask, they self-destruct. They know this is real. See attacks. The build is near complete. Growth exponentially. You are in the frame. You are the support. When this report comes out, Q is saying, people are going to be lost. They're going to be terrified. People will reject it and say it's not true. People will need to be guided through all of this because remember when you were awoken to what was real and what was fake? You were angry. You were pissed off. You didn't want to believe. And then you started to do research. And then you started to learn more. And then you started to calm down. And then you started to do more research. Then you tried to talk to other people, but they wouldn't listen. All these people are going to go through the same thing. And in the beginning stages, it's going to be anger and rejection. How long will that go on? We don't know. And this is why Q is saying people will need to be guided. Do not be afraid. We will succeed. Timing is everything. Think Huber. Think Department of Justice, FBI reorg. Think sex, child arrests, news. Think resignations, loss of control. How do you remove evil in power unless you reveal the ultimate truth? It must be compelling to avoid a divide. Political attacks, optics. We are the majority, growing. Worldwide, sheep no more, together, Q. So it looks like what Q is saying is that if a reporter or the House or if nobody asks the president to declassify the IG report, this is going to be forced then, and they're going to declassify it no matter what. And they're going to put it out there. And I think there's so much in there that what Q is saying right now, people are going to freak out. Now, the mainstream media is not going to cover any of this. So a lot of people might not even see it, I'm thinking. But once it gets out there and it starts to spread on social media, people will reject it. They will not believe it. They will be very angry and pissed off. And we can see during this period, if we go back to David Brock with his organization and many other individuals, they can get these people at that time to do something. And we can see that this is a very critical point in time. Just think back to when you were waking up, how angry you were, how you felt, how you rejected a lot of it. I know I did. I know the people that I speak to now did. And think about all those people that have been in this illusion for such a long time. It's going to be a very difficult period of time. And this is why Q is saying most of these individuals are going to have to be guided. And you have to remember, some of these individuals might be your family members. And you don't want to yell at them. You don't want to scream at them. You want to show them proof. That brings us back to Q with all the proofs. This is why Q has been saying we need to make the proofs to show people that this is real. And once they start seeing that and they start thinking logically and they start putting pieces together and they start doing research, that's when it becomes clear. But to get to that point, you got to control, guide them, talk to them, and try to explain it. Now, a lot of these individuals, a lot of maybe even family members, they are going to be angry. They're not going to want to talk. But we can see this is going to be a very difficult time. And we see how much had to happen before we got to this point. And I think this is why July, if we go back a couple of posts, July 2018, I think this is when it's all going to come out. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.